that's promising to tell us the plan while refusing to give us answers to the most basic of questions. We have a government promising to give Parliament a say when they're spending we don't know how much of taxpayers' money across the road in the Supreme Court trying to stop Parliament having a say on this. In short, we have a government that cannot tell us the plan because they do not have a plan.
Labour's tax turmoil. The battle lines are drawn. Right. Before we dive into this absolute political car crash that's unfolding at Westminster, do me a favour and hit that subscribe button, because what I'm about to tell you about Rachel Reeves and Labour's internal meltdown is going to leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about this government. Trust me, you won't want to miss what comes next. Picture this. You're the Chancellor of the Exchequer. You've just slapped British businesses with a £25 billion tax bombshell through national insurance hikes. Inflation is running at nearly double the Bank of England's target, and your own party is tearing itself apart from the inside. Welcome to Rachel Reeves' nightmare, and frankly, it's only just beginning. The woman who promised to fix Britain's economic foundations is now facing the most uncomfortable truth in politics. Sometimes your own side poses the greatest threat. Emily Thornberry, the former shadow foreign minister who didn't make it into Starmer's cabinet, has just declared war on the government's fiscal policy, and she's not pulling any punches. Wealth tax, Gaza, welfare. She's demanding action on all fronts, and her message to the Chancellor is crystal clear. I won't simply nod along. But here's where it gets really interesting, and if you're not already subscribed, you absolutely should be, because this story has more twist than a BBC political drama. Reeves has point-blank refused to introduce a wealth tax, calling it unproven and a mistake. Now, you might think that's reasonable fiscal prudence, but when you're facing a £20 billion budget shortfall and your own MPs are demanding radical action, reasonable prudence starts looking like political stubbornness. The Chancellor's position is fascinatingly contradictory. She's prepared to hammer businesses with national insurance increases that have created the biggest drop in recruitment across Europe, yet she's squeamish about targeting the genuinely wealthy. Her argument? Other countries like Switzerland don't have inheritance tax, so why should Britain risk an untested wealth tax? It's the kind of logic that sounds sensible until you realize she's comparing Britain's economic challenges to one of the world's most successful tax havens. Lord Kinnock, the former Labour leader who knows a thing or two about party management, has thrown his weight behind a 2% wealth tax on assets over £10 million. His calculation suggests it could raise £11 billion annually. That's not pocket change. That's serious money that could fund public services without crushing small businesses. But Reeves isn't having it, and that's where this story becomes truly explosive. Angela Rayner's sudden resignation over stamp duty underpayment has created a leadership vacuum at precisely the worst possible moment. The deputy leader's departure isn't just embarrassing, it's politically catastrophic. When your second-in-command can't manage her own tax affairs properly, how exactly are you supposed to lecture the country about fiscal responsibility? The irony would be delicious if it weren't so damaging to Labour's credibility. And speaking of credibility, let's talk about the economic reality that Reeves is desperately trying to navigate. Make sure you're subscribed, because these numbers are going to shock you. Inflation hit 3.8% in July, the highest since January 2024. That's nearly double the Bank of England's target, and it's happening on Labour's watch. The government inherited economic challenges, certainly, but they've added their own spectacular contributions to the mess. The national insurance hike has essentially told British employers to stop hiring. We're talking about a 1.2 percentage point increase that's cost businesses £25 billion and created the sharpest drop in recruitment activity across Europe. That's not just bad policy, that's economically destructive policy that's actively harming the job market. Young people looking for work, small businesses trying to grow, everyone's paying the price for Reeves' fiscal conservatism in the wrong areas. But here's the truly maddening part, and this is why you need to stay subscribed to this channel for more analysis. Economists are warning of a potential £50 billion gap in public finances. £50 billion. That makes the current £20 billion shortfall look like a rounding error. Yet Reeves is still insisting that wealth taxes are too risky, too unproven, too difficult to implement. It's like watching someone refuse a life jacket while their ship is sinking. Emily Thornberry's deputy leadership campaign isn't just about replacing Rayner. It's about forcing a fundamental rethink of Labour's entire approach to taxation and spending. Her social media declaration was surgical in its precision. We worked hard for a Labour administration. However, we have made mistakes and need to listen. That's not constructive criticism. That's a declaration of internal war. The timing couldn't be worse for Starmer and Reeves. They are preparing for the November 26 budget while facing a backbench rebellion, economic headwinds, and the kind of internal party warfare that destroyed previous Labour governments. Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch is already suggesting Britain might need IMF assistance, conjuring images of the 1970s economic crisis that brought down the last Labour government. Reeves' response to Badenoch was pure theatre. It is irresponsible and not serious. The only thing that needs a bailout is the Tory party from its failed leadership. It's a clever soundbite, but clever soundbites don't pay for public services or create jobs. They certainly don't solve the fundamental contradiction at the heart of Labour's economic policy. And that contradiction is becoming impossible to ignore. How do you claim to be the party of working people while refusing to tax genuine wealth? How do you justify hammering small businesses with national insurance hikes while protecting millionaires from wealth taxes? How do you maintain party unity when your deputy leadership candidates are openly challenging government policy? The answer, increasingly, is that you can't. Labour is discovering that governing is infinitely more complex and opposing, and the economic challenges they face require political courage they seem reluctant to display. Thornberry's challenge represents more than just a leadership contest. It's a fundamental test of whether Labour can adapt its policies to match the scale of Britain's economic problems. If you're finding this analysis valuable, make sure you're subscribed because we're only scratching the surface of this political earthquake. The wealth tax debate isn't really about taxation policy. It's about the soul of the Labour Party. Are they the party of incremental change and fiscal caution? Or are they prepared to take the radical steps necessary to address Britain's growing inequality? Lord Kinnock's support for a wealth tax carries particular weight because he understands the electoral costs of internal division. His backing suggests that senior Labour figures believe the party need to embrace more radical policies to maintain credibility with their base. But Reeves seems determined to resist, creating the economic data to the kind of internal reading for anyone hoping Labour will provide competent stewardship. Britain may be outperforming other G7 countries in growth terms, but that's a remarkably low bar given the global economic situation. When your main achievement is being slightly less awful than everyone else, you're not exactly inspiring confidence in your economic management. The recruitment crisis following the national insurance hike demonstrates the immediate consequences of Reeves' approach. Businesses are responding to higher costs by simply not hiring, creating a vicious cycle where reduced employment leads to lower tax revenues, which increases the pressure for further tax rises. It's economically illiterate policy making that's hurting precisely the working people Labour claims to represent. Make sure you hit that subscribe button because this story is far from over, and the implications go far beyond Westminster gossip. We're watching a government grapple with the fundamental challenges of modern capitalism, and their response will shape Britain's economic future for years to come. The November 26 budget will be Reeves' moment of truth. She can continue with her cautious approach, hoping that modest tax increases and spending restraint will somehow solve Britain's structural problems. Or she can embrace the radical policies her own MPs are demanding and risk the political consequences of genuine wealth redistribution. Thornberry's challenge represents the left's impatience with Labour's gradualist approach. Her campaign slogan might as well be "Stop being so bloody cautious," and she's tapping into genuine frustration within the party about the pace of change. The membership, the unions, the parliamentary party, they're all questioning whether this government has the courage to tackle Britain's entrenched problems. The resignation of Angela Rayner has removed one of Labour's most effective communicators at precisely the moment they need clear messaging about their economic strategy. Rayner's ability to connect with working-class voters made her invaluable, and a departure over tax issues creates an almost perfectly ironic situation for a party struggling with its own taxation policies. What makes this entire situation particularly fascinating, and why you should definitely be subscribed for ongoing coverage, is how it reveals the tensions between electoral politics and governing reality. Labour won power by promising change, but the kind of change that would genuinely address Britain's problems required political risks they seem unwilling to take. The Conservative opposition, despite their own catastrophic record in government, are beginning to sense opportunity. Badenoch's IMF comments might sound hyperbolic, but they are designed to plant seeds of doubt about Labour's economic competence. When your own MPs are openly criticizing government policy, those seeds find fertile ground. This brings us to the heart of the matter, Labour's credibility problem. They criticized Conservative economic management for years, promising they would do better. But their response to Britain's challenges has been remarkably similar to their predecessors. Tax businesses, protect wealth, and hope for the best. It's not exactly the transformational approach they promised voters. The internal party dynamics are becoming as important as the external economic pressures. Thornberry's deputy leadership campaign is really a proxy war over Labour's direction, and the outcome will determine whether this government moves left towards wealth redistribution or continues its cautious centrism. The stakes couldn't be higher for both the party and the country. So here we are, watching a government that promised to fix Britain's foundations discover that the foundations are more damaged than anyone imagined, and the tools they are willing to use are inadequate for the job. Rachel Reeves may have ruled out wealth taxes as unproven, but her own policies are proving equally questionable. The November budget will reveal whether Labour has the courage to match their rhetoric with radical action, or whether they'll continue managing decline with slightly better PR than their predecessors. The battle lines are drawn, the internal warfare has begun, and Britain's economic future hangs in the balance. If you want to stay ahead of this unfolding political drama, subscribe now, because this is only the beginning of what promises to be the most consequential political battle of our generation. The question isn't whether Labour will face more internal challenges, it's whether they'll survive them with their credibility intact.